So when you first open Blender, you'll get a splash screen, this here, and if you had been working on any documents, they're here. To get rid of this splash screen, all you have to do is click outside the splash screen and that gets rid of it. You don't have to click on anything inside that splash screen, that's fine. This little iBlender icon up here, that just brings it back also, if there was something you wanted to actually click on in there, so you can bring that back. Okay, so this is the default Blender startup screen, and you can customize the startup screen as you like. But first, one of the most important things you might want to do is go to the File, come down to User Preferences. You can make this window bigger if you like. Might help you. So there's a few things here you might want to set up. So the system, you just have a look. If you have a good graphics card, it is ideal to use that. So click on CUDA, providing you've got a compatible card, and then select your card. So that's all you need to do for that, and I'll show you how to use that right now. Actually, we'll do that. So over in these windows here, this one's called the Properties panel. It says it comes up little drop down windows. So if you want to know what a window is called, just hover over the icon. It's up here, it would be the outliner. So if you want to find out what anything's called, just hover over it. So this little camera picture is the rendering properties. So we were talking about using the graphics card for rendering. We need to switch this to cycles rendering to actually see this as well. So go to Device, go GPU Compute, and it's done. So, but you also might want to change performance because the GPU renders one block at a time. You can test this out and do test renders, but for me, I found 256 by 256 is generally the best, fastest size to use. Sampling here, you can leave this as it is, and then when you do a good render, you can up that to as high as you feel comfortable with. If you put that up to 1000, it takes a long time to render, but the picture's better. And also leave this at 50 for now. You can up that later on, it's no big deal. Right, so where are user preferences gone? There they are. So the file system, what you want to do is this temp file. You can put this temp file wherever you like. I actually have a better place for it than there, so I'll go and find it. Here we are, temp. So that's where all my temp files go. And I accept that. That's my storage hard drive, so that's where all my storage is, basically. So save versions. How many do I have? Save versions. I have 20. And recent files I leave as 10. So you've also got to auto save temp files every 2 minutes, which means every 2 minutes Blender's going to save your file and put it in this temporary directory. and 2 minutes after that it'll overwrite it and put a new file there. So if Blender does crash and you try and open your existing file without going to this temp file, and you didn't save lots of work, you'll open an older file where you could have opened a newer file. So if Blender crashes, go to your temp file to get the most recent one, unless you'd already saved it. Hope that makes sense. Autosave keep session. That just stays off. You can put it on. I've never seen a reason to leave that on. Themes you can do as you like, but just leaving it as Blender, how they have it set is fine. At this point in time in the add-ons, you don't need to enable anything. There's plenty of things that you can enable, but it just loads Blender up and you don't really require that at this point in time. But feel free to play with it, and so you go. Input, there's nothing for us there. Editing, global undo. Set this as high as you think your computer will cope. I'll set it to 100. What that means is Blender will need to store a lot of information into memory the higher that number is. If you have your memory limit set as 0, it will be infinite. So it could potentially crash things. If you want to put a safe number in there, you could put 1 gig in there, whatever you like. And lastly, on the interface, you can zoom to mouse position. I found that a bit hard to get used to, so I left it off. And generally this will be unchecked. I like this checked. This is a good one. Rotate around selection. So every time that you have something selected, it rotates when you rotate in the 3D viewport. So that's a good one to have. So you can save the settings, provided you want to save all the settings. And that will keep those settings every time you load Blender. With the undo steps, just say you were to move I didn't want to put that there, I need to go back. Your undo in Blender is the same as undo in Windows. It's Control Z, hold Control, press Z, and that will go back to the last move. If you had moved it 2 times, you still have those undos up to 100, if that's the setting that you've used. To rotate the way that I'm rotating now, I'm just holding the middle mouse button, which is the scroll wheel, and just moving the mouse around. So play with these things. Use the mouse wheel and scroll in and out. So I'm rotating basically around the selected object. If I choose a different object, you right click on the object, and then when you rotate, it rotates around that object. That's a light or a lamp. That's the camera, and that's just the default cube. Also, if you have lost your object anytime, which happens a lot, and you're not sure how to find it, up in this top right hand corner, you'll find, this is your outliner, you'll find your object. So if you want to find the cube, the lamp, click on the lamp, click on the camera. If you wanted to find any of those, all you have to do is get the mouse back over into this 3D window, and on your number pad, press the full stop button, which zooms to the selected object. That's very handy because it does happen, especially when you're playing around, experimenting with things. Things can just go missing. Another thing you can do is if things have gone a bit amiss, and you've, instead of selecting something with your right mouse button, you've used your left, which does this. It moves the cursor. You want everything back to how it sort of was at the start. You can push Shift C. It puts the 3D cursor back in the center and brings your viewport back to a relatively normal place. If you want to look through your camera and see what your render would look like, on the number pad you can push 0, and basically that's what the render is going to look like. So if you were to push F12 on your keyboard, it's going to render out what is there. Now you can save any image that you have rendered out by having your mouse over the image and push F3. And up the top here, you can save it as anything you like. And also select your directory and where you want it to go. To get rid of this, you can press Escape and it goes back to your normal image. If you want to if you want to keep the camera and adjust the camera while you're looking through it, or adjust where the camera is looking, press N on your keyboard. It brings up another properties panel. And down here, we find some words, lock camera to view. So check that. Then you can move the object around. Also, if you use the middle mouse button, like rotating, except hold down Shift before you press the middle mouse button, it moves your object side to side. And if you hold the control button down, and then hold down the middle mouse button, it zooms in small amounts, so you can get a fine tune on your zooming. Move your mouse up and down, zoom in and out, while holding the middle mouse button and control. Hold down Shift to move it up. If you wanted to render that, push F12. While the render is happening, you can abort the render at any time by pushing the Escape key. And then push the Escape key again to get out of that picture. If you want to get out of camera view, you can push 0 on the number pad again. Or if you want to get out of camera view, you can push number 1. Obviously this is not helping, so if we push the full stop key on the number pad, it takes us to our box. Sometimes you can get a bit muddled up like that. So 1 takes us to front view. Number 3 takes us to the side view. And number 7 takes us to top view, to view the top of our object. So instead of front view, if you hold down Control and push 1, it takes us to back view. And the same if we push Control, hold down Control and push 3. Instead of right view, it takes us to the left side view. And the same as if we push 7. Instead of top view, we hold down Control, push 7 and takes us to the bottom of the view of the object. Now this is a perspective view. Most of the times we'll be using an orthographic view. Up here it says perspective, but if we push number 5 on the number pad, it takes us to orthographic view. So with all of our rendering set up that we've done, having it onto Cycles Render, what we can do is we can have this as our startup file so we don't have to do this each time. So every time Blender opens, this saves. We haven't saved any of this. So if we save startup file, everything that we've done in the viewport will be opened as the startup file every time. If you're sure, press OK. If there was something that we didn't like about it, or we've messed the whole thing up, that's not a problem. We can go to the File menu, load factory settings, and that would take us back to the factory settings. Simple. Also, what I'd like to do is show you what effect the saving functions has that we've already enabled in the preferences. So when you want to save your object, come down to Save As, find where you want to save it to. I'll want to save it to my Blender, and if there's no file there that you want to save it into, you can come here and create a new file, name it, click on it, name your file, press enter, then press enter again. Now that's saved into that file. Every time that you change this, you might have done so much work and you want to save it. So push Control S. It'll ask that you want to save it. And we do want to save it. And that has saved another version of the same file. So we can keep doing this if we do. So that'll do up to 20 save versions. Now what I mean by that, in this box file, that's the last save version. And here's all the versions previous. That's the first, second, and the third, and this is the fourth. So if we keep saving, Control S, save, Control S, save. If we keep doing that, 5 is the last one before our actual file. So if we only want to go back one file, use this file, but you'll need to rename it. All you need to do to rename it is take the number off the back of it, and you might want to give it a relevant number. Accept that. And now Blender can actually open that file. Now if because we put the A5 on the end, it's not going to overwrite this file. Unless you actually wanted to overwrite that file, which is fine. Actually, there should also be a temp file called box. Let's have a look. There it is there. That would be the last file, and it saves that every 2 minutes. You can open multiple Blender files at the same time, and it will open in a new window. Have some fun, play around, try and mess things up a bit, see if you can work out how to edit to that cube and make it a different shape. If you don't end up working it out, I'll show you in the next video.